So strings, let's talk about them. Strings, as you already know, allow us to store textual data. First thing I want to talk about is string comparison. So let's actually go ahead and create a couple of strings. I will say some text. Here is some text. And then I will say string some other text. Here is some other text. So now we have the strings. Let's try to compare them. Remember how I told you that types have pre-written methods that we can access? We've tried try parse on int, and you also know that other numerical types have the same type of methods on them. And string is a type that also gives us access to pre-written methods. One of them is equals. So I can say some text, and then I can say equals, and then within that I can say some other text. See that? So it's going to compare the strings together. And equals is a method that returns a type of bool. And once again, you know that it's either going to be true if they are equal or false if they're not. But one thing to note here is there are three types of comparisons that we can do. If we do put a comma here, you can see that we can pass in other things in here. And it's called string comparison options. So there are three options for us. One is ordinal, the other one is invariant culture, the other one is current culture. I won't be going over them in detail, but what you want to understand is that ordinal pretty much does character by character comparison. When it comes to current culture and invariant culture, those two take into consideration specific language rules. So current culture takes into consideration the user's current region, so the regional language rules. And when it's invariant culture, it's taken into consideration some neutral cultural rules, aka what's mostly being accepted and done in the United States. So as long as you're not doing any language specific, culture specific text comparisons, then you can go with ordinal, because ordinal is a lot faster. It has faster performance. Some people say that whenever you're comparing strings, you want to always be doing invariant culture, so that if it's need to be taking into consideration certain language rules, then it will. But I say that if you know exactly what your application is going to be doing, then use what you need to use. So if you need to use ordinal and you know you're not going to take into consideration any language rules, then just use ordinal, because it's a lot faster. Otherwise, go with either one, either culture invariant or current culture. In this case, we'll be using ordinal. So I'll say ordinal, and then let's assign this to a variable, because this is going to return a value back. This essentially is an expression, and it's going to evaluate down to a Boolean value. So let's say bool is equal, and now let's actually run this real quick. Start, and let's hover over it. See, it says false. That's because they're not equal. Now let's try to make them equal. So I will change the contents of some other text, and I will make it so that it says here is some, and I will take the other, and let's see what this does. I will stop it, run it again, and you can see that it's true now. Now, one more thing. What if I change the casing here and I make this a capital letter? Let's try it again. And restart. So you see, now it's false. Why? Because it's case sensitive currently. But what we can do is we can do the ordinal comparison, but with case insensitivity. So we can say ignore case. Ordinal, ignore case. In this case, it should say true. See that? It's true, because the contents are the same and it doesn't care about the casing anymore. Let's talk about string concatenation. Concatenation is basically the process of putting strings together. Let me go ahead and do that. I will say string added text equals some text plus, I'll put a space here, and then I will say some other text. And then actually let's add some more stuff to it. I will say here is some more text. Okay? So this is an expression that will evaluate down to a string value and then be stored in this variable. However, adding strings together like this is not the best way, and it gets very messy very quickly. So there are other ways to do it. One of them is using a string builder, which I will be going over a little later. And the next way is using string formatting, which I will be showing you now. So let's go ahead and do that. I will say string, formatted string, and I will say string format, which is a pre-written method that we have access to that's on the type string. Then I will say 0, 1, and here is some text. Then I will say some text and some other text. Let's see. So these two will have the same exact value. We're actually going to print it out. I'm going to say right line for added text, and also I'm going to print out formatted text. Let's actually see the values. See here? Here is some text, here is some text, here is some more text. And the same for formatted text. So now that you saw that they're exactly the same at the end, let's actually go over how formatting works. So first, you specify to the method your template, how you want the end result to look like. See, we don't even have to specify the spaces, like we don't have to add spaces separately. We can actually just have a space in the template, and it'll take care of it. And then we inject the values that we want into the template. So these are known as the format items. And the format items, we specify them in sequence. So first one is 0, second one is 1, and here is the actual format items. So we're saying first we want to see some text, then we have a space in the template, then we want to see some other text, then we have a space again, then we want to see the rest of the text, right? We could also, if we wanted to, we could have taken this out, and the next would be 2, obviously, right? 0, 1, 2. And then we could have had it here in double quotes. And there you go. This would have been the same exact thing. But since we know this is a constant in our case, and it's not in a variable, we're just going to put it in the template. It's up to you. But this is how you can build and structure text in a much cleaner way. A couple of more things to know is that strings have lengths and strings have indexes. So we can access their specific characters within the string. Let me go ahead and show you. So I can say console right line, and I will get some text, and then from that I will say length, which is a property that we have access to. Once again, properties are another thing that we'll be talking about later. But just for now, know that strings have a length property that just gives out their length. In this case, we will see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. So we should see 17 for the length. Now, let's actually go ahead and access a specific character in this string. So I will say, by the way, it starts from 0, not from 1. So the index starts from 0. So you count 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Let's put 8 here. So we expect to see 17 for the length, and we expect to see capital letter S for the specified character. Let's go ahead and see that. And as predicted, 17 and capital letter S. Another important concept to know about is substringing. So this is going to allow us to get a part of the string. Let me go ahead and show you. I will say console right line again, take this one out. And then what we're going to do is we're going to get the word some. So we'll go ahead and say some text dot substring, which is another method that's on any type string that we have access to. And then I'm going to say 8. Why 8? Because we already know that is going to be 8 for this index. So we can count again. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that's 8 for here. And then what you want to do is you want to pass in the length. So how many characters do you want to count forward? So start from 8 and count forward. So you say 1, 2, 3, 4. And there you go. Now, one thing you want to know is that the starting point is going to be included. So whatever you start from, it's going to be included in here. So let's actually go ahead and print this. And here you see some. A couple of other methods that are pre-written for us on the string type are to lower and to upper. These will allow us to uppercase or lowercase the entire string. So let me go ahead and show you that. I will print some text, and I will print it first by lowercasing the whole thing, and then I will print it again by uppercasing the whole thing. I will say to upper, and these are both pre-written methods that we can use right out of the box. And let me show you what they look like. See? Lowercased, all uppercased. That's great. Now, one other thing I would like to show you is we can declare variables and say another string, right, or another text, and just assign it to double quotes, which will create an empty string. However, there is a lot cleaner way to do this. Instead of doing this, you can just say string.empty, and that will create an empty string. So whenever you want to create empty strings, use this instead of just having double quotes. It's not as clean. And another thing is, you don't want to be using string literals in your source code. The only time you want to be using string literals, and string literals are pretty much what you see right here, you have a value of string laying in your source code. The only time you want to use this if you are defining some type of configuration value, and then you can use that variable that has the configuration value in your source code. So an example would be, I wouldn't want to use this all around in my code base. I wouldn't want to have, here is some text in one file, here is some text in another file. What I want to do is, I would want to define this value, put it in some type of variable, like some text, and then use some text all around the code base. Because that way, if I change this value, it will change it everywhere. But if I just use this value all over the place, and I only change it in one place, it will only change there. It won't change anywhere else, right? So that's one thing to keep in mind. But the point of this was that whenever you need to declare a string and keep it empty, just use string.empty. This is a much cleaner and accepted way to do it. So lastly, I would like to go over another pre-written method that we have access to on the string type. It's called replace. This allows us to replace a given text within another text. Let me show you. I will declare another variable called replaced text, and I will say some text dot replace, because it's a string type, and so we have access to replace on it. And that takes two things. First, it takes the text that we want to replace within the given text. So within the given text, which is some text, which says here is some text, I want to change the word text. And I want to change it with a new word. I want to say it string. So at the end, this will be read as here is some string instead of saying here is some text. Let's go ahead and print replace text. And you will see that it will say here is some string. I will run it. And there you go. Here is some string. So we saw that there are so many useful methods on the string type, and there is a lot more, but these are the ones that we'll be using in our application, and you will see these being used most often in general. But do not shy away from exploring rest of the methods on the string type.